3 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. Lots to get to on today's program. We'll continue assessing South Carolina's baseball program. A lot of mixed emotions this week. Just those of you who just heard me on with Terry and Tyler, as a guy that said doesn't matter if we make the tournament, they don't have enough pitching. Of course it matters. Of course it matters. I mean, ask yourself a very easy question. Would you rather make it or not make it?
Right.
Yeah, this is like the whole, the basketball thing. Would you rather win the NIT or make the NCAA tournament and lose the first game? I'd rather make the NCAA tournament and lose the first game. Let me tell you why. Because that's the one you play for. I mean, so, again, if you're falling into that camp of it, that's anger and cynicism. And I get it. I'm not here to tell you how to feel, but of course other than to say, yes, of course it matters if you make the tournament. And it's a double elimination tournament. And, you've had suspect pitching a lot anyway. I mean, pitching, the ERA across the conference, across the country is up. Again, you take that however you want. I'm not making an excuse for anybody. I'm giving you fact.
That a lot of teams are in your boat in terms of struggling pitching.
ERA is up this year. Again, offenses have caught up with pitching in college baseball this season, including South Carolina, as I might add. South Carolina does score a lot of runs. There's every reason to think that you can get into a short series and advance. There's every reason to think you can get into a short series and be eliminated in 2 games. But you do have opportunity. And again, that's why next week is going to be interesting. This weekend certainly matters. But I'll be curious to see what type of emphasis, or really maybe a better way to put it is not what type of emphasis Carolina puts on it, but will they be forced into changing the typical South Carolina baseball program approach? Because, again, whether it is on purpose or not, and we've talked about this for years, the Gamecock baseball team does not play well typically in Hoover. There may be a variety of reasons for that. But considering how good South Carolina baseball has been through the decades, they got 1 tournament championship. And probably more often than not, they've probably played 3 games. Some years they played 2. Heck, some years now that there's a new format, they played 1. I mean, if you don't need it, listen, nobody can guarantee you. Mark can't make a call. Ray can't make a call to the, and I don't know who's chairing the committee this year. Is it Matt Hogue? Is it Coastal's guy? Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, regardless, you don't go, hey, can you just do me a solid real quick? Tell me we're in, right? We're good? Because I need to plan my week in Hoover, or lack thereof. No, you're not going to get that. Should you not win a game this weekend, you may need to win a couple of games to feel perfectly confident. Again, I feel perfectly confident right now, but that's just me. I know Elijah feels the way I do. I think South Carolina is going to this tournament regardless of this weekend's results, because their 50-plus game body of work is more than good enough. And even for bubble team, South Carolina is not even anybody's projections, isn't a so-called bubble team. They're in. Can you fall out and onto the bubble? I suppose. Yeah. And if somebody continues on a hot pace, if Georgia sweeps Florida, though, I'll tell you, Florida's done.
Florida's on. They're a team that
they're
is
a bubble team.
Firmly on the bubble.
They're a
they
bubble
are
team.
1 game over 500.
And
they have
let's
stuff
face
to
it,
worry about.
Even if you were on the bubble with Florida, guess what? You got the best indicator, perhaps, to a committee of how to separate the two. So I just don't see that level of fear and anxiety needing to creep into what's already difficult. And I get it. Listen, for those of you who've not heard me say this, when it comes to hosting, my minimum expectation for this baseball program is that you should host in the NCAA tournament every year, the opening round at least, every year. That's my expectation. You're not always going to do it, but that's what I think you should set the bar for. And I'm not in the camp of, you got to be in Omaha, again, every 3rd year or something like that. That's too arbitrary. and too reliant upon things that you don't know about. I mean, again, if you made 5 straight super regional game 3s and got beat in the 9th inning 5 straight times, are you a failure? Some may say yes, but I would say, well, you made the Sweet 16 and you pushed it to the limit, and you just, baseball's a funny game. Something like that. But so I just don't do the arbitrary stuff. But I don't think setting a bar of hosting every year is arbitrary. Sadly, you played your way out of it over the course of 3 days in your home ballpark, and that stings mightily. Again, like you and I joked yesterday, there is a very rocky, not used path to hosting again.
One you wouldn't choose to go down.
Yeah, but that involves having to go to Knoxville and win a series, and then again do what you typically do not, and that is advance well enough at the SEC tournament. And I would agree, when you look at what that would entail, you probably don't have enough pitching for that. You probably don't. If you can win some games this weekend. I know Coach Kingston spoke today, not very long. You said less than 10 minutes.
7 minutes on the dot was the entire presser online.
Not a whole lot to say right now. It's pretty simple. We need to go win some baseball games. I might have just done that and dropped the mic.
There you go. Well, you summed it up. Yeah. So yeah, if there's your Spark Note summary of what was said today.
But if I'm the coaching staff, and I'm not, but I would agree with what Terry said, and I was already thinking this, and you and I can talk about it more. I'm going Ty Good Thursday night. I'm going Eli Jones Friday night, and I'm going Garrett Gainey Saturday afternoon. And I'll let the bullpen shake out accordingly. SQ, Becker, something's up with Kimball. I don't know I just don't know if his confidence in himself, their confidence in him. I just think those things, unfortunately, it's sad. You hate it. But I think it's shot. But you've got some guys, McCreary, Veach. You've got some guys that I think you can depend upon. But you need these guys that have been your best to now take the ball and go do something for you. And again, at a place where Tennessee wins about 9 out of every 10 games they play at home. So it's hard.
Well, that's the thing with the pitching staff right now too. I think the 3 names that you just reeled off are your best pitchers. And at some point, you have to make the calculated risk of, when do I want to give my best pitchers the ball? Are they doing me any good if they're getting the ball down 4-0 or down 5-1? It's like one of those instances, there's so many studies in baseball have been done, like, are you wasting your closer by only putting him in the 9th inning when there's no runners on and you have a 2 or 3-run lead? You can maximize them because that emphasizes that the 9th inning is the only important inning of the game, or the most important. But even though there's 8 innings before that get you to that spot, what's more important? Getting to that spot and being up 3-0 and closing the door and ending the game, or just that 1 inning where you close the door and end the game with your arguably your best pitcher, your most dominant pitcher? I'm of the belief that, if you want to make the 9th inning important, you got to have to do your work in the first 8.
Yeah.
And for this team, if you want to be able to get to the 5th inning to where you then start utilizing your bullpen, they're not going to be any good if you're already down 5-1 by the time you get there.
Agreed.
So using your best pitchers now, at least get to where you have a manageable game where you at least shorten it, because you're going to score runs. Like, it's not like these are going to be you're not going to have Eli start a game and it's going to be 1-0 going into the 6th inning, right? You give up runs, other teams will give up runs to you because you hit the ball so well. But would you rather be up 6-4 and have a manageable 5-6 innings where you give up 4 runs and be able to manage the last couple innings of the game, instead of being like, oh, shoot, we got to put our best pitcher in now, and hopefully he's able to eat up enough innings to get us to the 7th inning?
Right. Yeah, no,
that's where you're at.
I agree. And I think, for those who are critical of the coaching staff, I think one of the things that is fair, the most fair in terms of questions, is the usage of your better arms. And Mark says he and Matt have talked about it a lot, that as Matt has assessed these guys, Matt Williams, the pitching coach, he's felt that the roles they're in have been their best roles. And it may well be now, because, again, it's not too late to make the tournament. It may be, unfortunately, too late to host in this tournament. But, will Mark do something similar to what we've seen Shane Beamer do as the head coach the last couple of seasons? Again, in 22, Shane basically told Marcus Satterfield, hey, bud, this playbook, way too thick. And it's just not happening. I want you to Terry and I used to joke about it, Elijah, and it's like if it's a Denny's menu, I'm taking the salmon and the T-bone off the menu, because really I'm not coming to Denny's for the salmon or the T-bone. I'm coming for the Grand Slam, right? Or just a big stack of pancakes sometimes.
You're going for what they're best at.
I need some bacon, some eggs.
You ever gone to Waffle House for a steak?
I haven't. I know some people say it's really good. I'm sure it's fine. It's Waffle House.
That's not why you get.
But I'm there for the All-Star Special every time, because I'm getting the waffle, I'm getting my grits, I'm getting my smothered hash browns, I'm getting some bacon, and I'm getting some toast, man. And I'm walking out of there, maybe waddling out of there, but I got a smile on my face. We saw it last year with Shane, with Clayton White. Like, hey, listen, some of these things on defense, you hate the term simplify. I hate that term. I tell Ryan Brewer all the time, I hate the term simplify, but it's the word we use. But when the head coach steps in, this is his gig. And I'm wondering what those, he told us yesterday, did Mark, you and me, he and Matt have talked about changing things up. They won't announce it until tomorrow, he said. He said they'd like to they'll probably actually literally get on the road.
Some gamesmanship.
Yeah, and then make the starting rotation public. Heck, you don't have to.
You don't have to at all.
That's really more for us and the fans than it is for India. And if you want to keep it from Tennessee, keep it from Tennessee. Until they see whomever walk out on the hill, in the middle of the first inning. They're like, I don't know who it's going to be. It could be like the Masked Singer.
Our boy TBA going back out on the mound.
Get
the masked pitcher.
Yeah, get some crazy get up out there. Oh, it's Tiger.
It's just dressed as cocky, and then you get to the mound, and then you get out of the cocky suit, and then we find out who's pitching.
I remember
Ken Jeong has to guess who it is each time.
I remember years ago.
Oh my God, is that Dennis Eckersley?
Yeah, right. It was like 3 or 4 years ago on Dan Patrick, and they were ragging on that show so hard. And Paulie Paps was like, they'll have a guy and we're like, oh, that could be Kevin Costner. I think it's Leonardo DiCaprio. Oh, it's Andy Dick.
Oh man, Pauly Shore.
I
thought it was Adam Sandler for sure.
That's the thing. It's like they have whoever the panel is, like really guessing that it's going to be some A-lister who pulls down 50 mil of film, right? Like, nah, they're not coming on the Masked Singer.
Sorry, it's just Pauly D.
Yeah, so
that's it.
Anyway, we got more to talk about. We'll give you a little bit from Coach coming up. Do you have that ready to go?
I can pull it up.
No, that's okay. Well, if you don't, yeah. And then Mitch Light of The Athletic will join us coming up bottom of the hour. And the voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, scheduled to be with us for his regular visit in the 4 o'clock hour today. We have news out of the Atlantic Coast Conference that we'll be discussing. The Braves swept the Cubs last night, but the Braves might have some bad news on Austin Riley, so a lot to do. And if you'd like to chime in on what we're talking about baseball-wise, please do. We had a great interaction with you guys yesterday and want to keep it going today, 803-404-6100 on the phone line or the text line. You are listening to the Tuesday afternoon postgame show.
Talked a lot about how much fun I've been having with my friends at Prize Picks for the basketball and hockey playoff action. And they have a nice special promotion for something other than that. And that is the women's basketball season starting. It starts tonight, and one Caitlin Clark will be making her debut with Aaliyah Boston and the Indiana Fever against the Connecticut Sun. That game's at 8 o'clock Eastern, and Prize Picks is here to help you out. They have a promotion where right now the projection on Caitlin Clark points is at 0.5, meaning all she has to do is score a point. Score a point, and it goes for you on your entry. All you got to do is just get on PrizePicks, download the app, use promo code 1075GAME for a first deposit match if you want to get that first deposit match up to $100. 1075GAME on PrizePicks. Caitlin Clark, 0.5 points. I think it'd go more on that. But go ahead, use this special promotion because it runs out by the time it tip-off at 8 o'clock tonight. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy.
Welcome back into the postgame show, 19 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Tuesday. It'll be a short segment here. Mitch Light of The Athletic joining us at the bottom of the hour, so we want to have as much time with Mitch as possible. Elijah Campbell has asked a poll question for all of you to answer today at the Twitters.
That's right.
Because I don't call it the other thing.
It's supposed to be a letter, right?
I don't know.
Something like that.
Twitter.
It's Twitter to me. It'll always be Twitter.
Yep.
Till I die.
Yep.
But our poll question...
Or until I get off the platform, one or the other.
That's true. Whatever comes first. And honestly,
I was going to say, yeah.
It's a 50-50 proposition.
Yeah, right. I'm flipping a coin.
Yeah. But at 1075 The Game on Twitter, poll question of the day, do you think the Gamecocks are in any danger of missing the NCAA baseball tournament? And we've been doing these polls now, since October pretty regularly. And this might be the most votes that we've gotten that it's this competitive. We've had 332 votes so far just in the first 4 hours, this thing being up. And 50.9% say yes, South Carolina is in real trouble of missing the NCAA baseball tournament, while 49% say no.
Well, okay, so read the question again, please.
Do you think the Gamecocks are in any danger of missing the NCAA baseball tournament?
All right, so, if I nitpick and say, are they in any danger? And I take that literally. Is there some chance? Yeah. I mean, because Carolina's not, 45-8, right? Where you're a lock.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you were to go to Knoxville this weekend, like Tyler said, if you were to go to Knoxville this weekend and get run ruled 3 times, and then go, lay a big, ostrich egg, or like one of those big dinosaur eggs from Jurassic Park next week in Hoover, could the committee look at you and go, boy, you've lost 7 straight by an average of about 8 or 9 runs a game, and you're going to come into this tournament not just limping, but like on crutches?
Yep.
Okay, does that possibility exist in some universe? Probably. But what's the likelihood of that? And even then, I'm not saying that's what knocks you out. I'm saying that could give. So when if you ask, is there any danger? But how much danger? Very, 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 very little.
I mean, am I in danger of getting stuck in that elevator and the elevator doors closing and snapping my arm off? Technically, yes, there is a small chance, a very, very small chance, a less than a half or less than a fraction of a percentage that gruesome scenario ends up happening. Yeah. So because that slight percent chance exists, I guess technically you can say there is a chance. Yeah. But with this baseball team, I really don't think there's any scenario where they're excluded.
That's what I'm saying.
The body of work. Yeah, the body of work is still really good. Yeah. I mean, like, look, here's a fun blind resume example. We like doing these type of things, don't we, Jay?
Yep.
Blind resume example. You tell me which resume you would rather have.
Okay.
Team 1 is number 19 in the RPI. Mm-hmm. Team 2 is number 41 in the RPI.
Okay.
Team 1 is 9-15 in quad 1 games.
Gotcha.
Team number 2 is 4-8 in quad 1 games.
Okay.
Team number 3 is 24-3 in quadrants 2 through 4. Team number 2 is 27-11 in quads 2 through 4. Team number 1 has the number 10 strength of schedule. Team number 2 has the number 46 strength of schedule. Team number 1's best wins are taking 2 of 3 against the number 1 team in the RPI. Team number 2's best wins are taking 2 of 3 at the number 15 team in the RPI.
All right.
Which resume would you rather have?
Yeah, it's pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Team 1.
Team 1 is South Carolina.
Yeah.
Team 2 is West Virginia.
Okay.
And depending on what you look at projection-wise, West Virginia is anywhere from a 2 seed or one of the highest 3, which means even if they're the highest 3, they have one of the they're still in the bottom 16 of at-large bids. But that's even at the bottom 16. As of right now, I think On3 had them as a 3, but they were like the 3rd highest 3. And, last week, D1 Baseball had them as a 2, as one of the lowest 2s because they've been playing at Kentucky, who was the number 1 overall.
Look,
you're significantly better. And even if you lose out, you're still going to have better metrics across the board than a team like West Virginia.
Yeah. And it's weird. And look, I'm not going to sit here and make any excuses. It's weird how it just, boy, if you had just won on Saturday, Game 3, how much different the conversation is around you. But Game 3 ending the way it did, no question, completely changed how we're discussing this ball club. Mm-hmm. If you can go win one this weekend, you're gonna rework the narrative a little bit too. Now, again, back into the hosting situation. No, I'm afraid that ship has sailed without a nice run in Hoover. And again, I don't know if this team is capable of that. I don't. Because you're going to expend a lot of pitching energy this weekend regardless, and to get that geared back up is a big ask, especially when you need to have those guys ready to go once this tournament begins. Doesn't mean you can't, because, again, you can score a lot of runs. You can score a lot of runs.
That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, you're even in this past series, you scored over 7 runs a game.
Yeah. You just, wow. Again, I didn't, like, I'll keep saying it. I didn't see that coming from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And they are the hottest team in the country. They are. And they've probably worked their way into top 8 status. And
They're
especially
number 3 in RPI now.
yeah. I mean, you're gonna play a good Florida team, not a great Florida team, but a Florida team that's top 30 RPI anyway.
Would be a quad 1 game.
So it'll be, a nice weekend for Georgia as long as they continue their hot pace. Florida could really use a win. We'll see what Kevin O'Sullivan tries to pull out of the hat to salvage at least one of those. And the same thing for Mark, And again, I'd go Ty Good, Eli Jones, Garrett Gainey, and let me take my chances accordingly. Do I need to? And I hate to say this, I probably do go for that stronger offensive lineup. So I may have to sacrifice a little D. If Tippett is feeling great, considering where he was from the right-hand side, right before he got hurt, then I might be able to live with that and still keep him down near the bottom of the order. You really just might have to outslug somebody, and that's a big ask this weekend. But
you're in a park where you can. I mean, that's the thing. That's a park where the ball flies out for both teams.
Yeah.
Both teams are hitting in that park.
And again, if you didn't get to hear a lot of us yesterday, we got to focus as much as we can on the now. Will there be conversations about whatever the longer term is? I don't know. That's not up to me. We're going to have Coach Tanner on soon, so some of those conversations, those questions at least we can ask. But I mean, we know what he's going to say in terms of a postseason evaluation. And this is not, as I've said before, this is not like the end of the Darren Horn era or the end of the Will Muschamp era, where the team was dreadful and going nowhere when it comes to postseason opportunity. This team's going to the NCAA tournament. It's just not going in to this tournament the way the majority of us envisioned that they were just 2 or 3 weeks ago.
And you might end up having to go into this NCAA tournament playing in a place where you really don't want to go play.
Yeah.
Like Winston-Salem.
Yeah, like Winston-Salem, Chapel Hill, or Clemson.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to play any of those places.
But you're not going to somebody that's a 1 in your conference, so chances are pretty good you're going to be playing somewhere around here.
Or heaven forbid, you slip enough to where you end up playing at a place like Corvallis.
Yeah, that would be rough.
That'd be terrible.
Yeah.
That would be awful.
Let's see what Mitch Light thinks about Carolina's chances of making the tournament. Everything going on around the Southeastern Conference. Mitch covers college baseball for The Athletic. He'll be with us when the postgame show continues. Way too often guys just won't go to the doctor when they're feeling bad, even when they're feeling off. Listen, if something's wrong, it's not going to go away on its own. That's just not how things work. So do yourself a favor. Don't tough it out. Don't be that guy. Instead, call 803-875-MENS. And get a one-on-one consultation with Dr. Dan Balknight and his team at the men's clinic. Dan is a great guy, and he's got a terrific one-on-one rapport. He knows how to, just ask the right questions. There may be very simple solutions to some of the things that are going on as to why you don't feel the way you used to feel, the way you want to feel. They specialize in this at the men's clinic. They're experts in healthcare for men, dedicated to making you feel like yourself again. 803-875-MENS, online, themensclinicsc.com. Continuing our conversation around college baseball, specifically the Gamecocks, get into a few SEC and national notes as well. Mitch Light, kind enough to join us now. He primarily covers college football for The Athletic, but this spring is on the college baseball beat. He joins us now. Appreciate the time, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well. Hope you guys are doing well over there in Columbia.
Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of days, as you might imagine, after the Gamecocks were swept by Georgia, who may well be the hottest team in the country, Mitch. Let me kind of start there, because part of this conversation here in Columbia has to revolve around the fact that Georgia is playing so well. I know when fans see their team fail, they might not always want to give the other guy credit, but from an outsider's perspective, when you're thinking of the Bulldog baseball team right now, what comes to mind?
Great lineup. And, yeah, they are playing – I don't think it's an exaggeration to say they're playing as well as any team in the country. And college baseball is unique, I think, more so than basketball and definitely football. It's sometimes when you play these teams, there's so many ebbs and flows in the 10-week college baseball season in the SEC. Certain teams because so many freshmen play, because, you know, the good players are typically only there for 3 years. Like Phelps, you know, at Georgia, they get better as the season progresses. You can play a team that's missing a weekend starter, and that's a great advantage for you. And unfortunately for South Carolina, they played Georgia at a time when the Bulldogs are peaking. I mean, they've won 2 straight series. They beat Vanderbilt and South Carolina. They scored at least 10 runs in all 6 games. I think I did for my weekly roundup that published on Monday. I think I looked at the average score was like 12-5, and that is just, you know, 2 decent middle-of-the-pack SEC teams in South Carolina and Vanderbilt, and just made them look silly and doing so in Columbia. So, yeah, I mean, I know fans don't like to always give credit to the opposition, but that Georgia team is very, very good. And, you know, Charlie Condon gets all the publicity, but, you know, their leadoff hitter, Collins, is leading the nation in on-base percentage. They just, you know, Wes Johnson's just done a great job with that team this year.
Mitch, I'll ask you what we've asked our audience on Twitter at 1075 The Game, and that is, do you think the Gamecocks are in any danger of missing the NCAA baseball tournament? They had the sweep against Georgia this past weekend. They got to go to Knoxville this weekend, plus whatever happens in Hoover. Do you personally think the South Carolina team can fall out of the playoff picture?
I would be shocked if they don't make it. Okay, let's assume the worst and they lose get swept in Knoxville, which could happen. I mean, Tennessee, I saw them 3 games in person this week in Nashville. You talk about a Georgia lineup that's good. Tennessee probably has the best lineup, you know, top to bottom in the SEC and probably the country there. But, you know, at 13-17 with their metrics, you know, I looked this up, dating since 2019, the teams that have gone 13-17, South Carolina in 2022 didn't get in, RPI of 69, so that's why they didn't. Georgia in 21, RPI 44, didn't get in. LSU in 21, RPI 19 got in. Alabama in 20 was actually 12-17 and got in with a 36 RPI. And then Florida in 2019, RPI 30 got in. So basically anyone with an RPI over 40 has gotten in at 13-17, which South Carolina obviously will have. And the thing that just separates, you know, when I was looking at when you talk college basketball bubble or whatever, like every team on the bubble, I think it might even be a stretch to say South Carolina's on the bubble, but every team on the bubble has warts or else they wouldn't be there. So what have you done to separate you from other bubble teams? What's the best thing you can do? Have a series win over the number 1 RPI team in the country, probably? Kentucky. They did that. They have a neutral site win over North Carolina. If you look at the RPI today, they will have played the top 6 teams in the RPI, which is incredible. The record versus the top 5, because they haven't played Tennessee yet, is 5-8. Very respectable. So they have done some things at the high end of their resume that will separate them from other so-called bubble teams.
Talking to Mitch Light of The Athletic. Gamecocks at Knoxville this weekend to close out the regular season. Let's go back to the conversation or the point you made. You were at the Vandy UT series this past weekend in Nashville. And Vandy, you know, that win Sunday, that shutout victory, a lot of people said, boy, that's, you know, for a long season, that one could have done a lot for Vandy's chances, but it's the first time Tennessee's been shut out. What did Vandy do right, and how good, in more detail, are the Volunteers?
Yeah, that might have been the most. I'm not, you know, as Elijah knows, I've, you know, been watching Vanderbilt baseball closely for 20 years, and that might have been the most high-pressure regular season game of the Tim Corbin era. And when you factor everything in there. Now, they've made 17 straight NCAA tournaments, regionals, which is the longest active streak. And I think they can set the longest active streak by an SEC team if they make it this year. So you combine the fact that they lost, 8 or 9 straight to the rival Tennessee, and the fact that they needed a win against a good team, the fact that they did it. They just got a great pitching performance from J.D. Thompson, a kid who that was only his third weekend start, who got shelled the weekend before at Georgia. He just mixed his pitches well, had his fastball going. Tennessee, first shutout of the season, they didn't get an extra base hit all game. And then, got great relief from Devin Futrell, who threw 3 shutout innings there. So it was just really good pitching. And Tennessee's lineup is just look at it. Every dude seems to be hitting 350 with 15 home runs. Now it does fall off a little bit at the bottom. They're really struggling trying to find a Tony Vitello quote of the weekend was like, no one has earned the right to be the everyday DH. So it falls off a little bit at the bottom. But one thing about Tennessee is while their ERA, I think, in league play is second, which is obviously very good, they don't have the dominant starter that we've seen from Tennessee in years past, Chase Dollander, some of the elite guys around the league. Now, we've seen Drew Beam for 3 years. He had a great freshman year, but he's given up more hits than innings. In league play, this team has given up more hits than innings, which you wouldn't expect to see from a team like Tennessee, but they don't walk anybody. So that's I think any pitching coach would tell you, if you don't walk people, you're going to put yourself in good position to win. The problem for South Carolina this week, difficult to play in Tennessee, very small park. That's, I'm not taking away from Tennessee's hitters. They're all very good, but that's one reason why they have so many home runs. Very small park there. So South Carolina pitchers got to keep the ball in the yard because it can get ugly quickly when you're playing in Knoxville.
And with the SEC tournament coming up, too, obviously the eyes are going to be on teams like Kentucky, A&M, Georgia with how they're playing, Arkansas with that pitching staff being cartoonishly good, and Tennessee's batting order like we've gone over. But is there a team that maybe people aren't talking about that you think has a legit chance to make a run and maybe even go deeper than anticipated once the NCAA tournament starts?
Yeah, Mississippi State seems to be playing very, very well, almost quietly, which is, you wouldn't expect from a program like that. It's well documented. There's post-national championship struggles. Haven't made the tournament the last 2 years, and they got off to a slow start this year. I think they had they lost a midweek series to Austin Peay. And, Mississippi State coaches were ready to, put the for sale signs on Chris Lemonis' house. But they're playing very well. They're up to 15-2. They've secured their 15-12 in the league. They've secured their spot. They're probably in great position to host. So I was going to say there's not much pressure on them, but there is pressure because they don't want to go one and done because that would hurt their hosting. But they're getting healthier. Their starting pitching has been very good of late there. So Mississippi State, as it gets later in the week, they'll have the fans that come over from Mississippi. So that's a team that might be, among the non-elite that could win this thing.
Mitch, last thing for you. We know 2 schools, Auburn and Mizzou, aren't going to the NCAA tournament. The other 12, there's some degree of either certainty, top 8, bubble, Ole Miss, Florida, maybe the bubble. Carolina fans maybe think they're getting perilously close to that, but do you see 12 or too much to do for UF and Ole Miss?
Yeah, I think between LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida, there's no way all 3 are going to make it. I just don't think the math's going to work out there. I think there's a chance only one could make it. Vanderbilt goes to Kentucky this week. If they get swept there, they're in serious danger. I think they only need 1 win. So I think we'll probably see in the 10 range, maybe 11. But Ole Miss and LSU play each other, so they're going to cancel each other out there. So, that is going to make it for an exciting first couple days in Hoover because there's going to be a lot of pressure on those teams on that first day.
Yeah. I lied. One more thing, football-wise here. Give us Mitch Light's quick SEC assessment of what he most learned after spring football.
That's a good question. I've been so baseball focused. It's, as Elijah knows, in my previous lifetime, I was at Athlon Sports, so I was so obsessed with spring practice and the followings and putting out the magazine after that. Between working a little college baseball and college basketball, and then to me, I don't know, it just seems like spring practice, while we are obsessed with college ball, means less and less, especially with so much roster turnover after the portal. So I don't even know how to answer that question. Nothing stood out to me from the SEC.
That's probably fair. I was going to say, I think nothing might be an answer for a lot of us. So that's why I want you to join.
Right.
I want you to join the club. I'm in it. Coach Beamer is in it. A few others. We want a real game, an exhibition game, but a real game in the spring. So help me out with that, like later this summer in some piece you do at the website.
Oh, well, I'll start that. But no, I totally agree. It just seems like spring practice is less significant every year, and then add the portal into it, and you got early enrollee freshmen who you're trying to work in. It's not like teams are very few teams at least are announcing their starting quarterback. It seemed like 10, 15 years ago, a lot of schools would announce their starting quarterback after a competition in the spring. That almost never happens now.
Yeah. It's either that or we go do Lane Kiffin's, elementary school field day thing that they did.
Yeah, that was great too. Yeah,
there's some theater in that, if nothing else. Hey, Mitch, appreciate the time. I'm glad Elijah got you on with y'all's ties to each other up in Nashville. We'll do it again soon, man. Appreciate you.
Anytime. Take care, guys.
You bet. That is Mitch Light of The Athletic. Yeah, he's great. And, again, it's very easy. Mitch Light, like Light.
Yep. Pretty straightforward on Twitter.
Follow along on the Twitters. Recap some of what he had to say about where things are across the SEC when the postgame show continues. 11 minutes in front of 4 o'clock here on a Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. Thanks again to Mitch Light for joining us. Do appreciate his time. Good stuff covering college baseball for The Athletic. And, like the two of us and a lot of you, there's just not a lot of concern about South Carolina making the NCAA baseball tournament. And, I know sometimes it's funny how I do my very level-headed best in my job to be, I don't want to say accommodating, understanding, compassionate, perhaps. But sometimes I'll hear something, again, and at the end of the halftime show with Tyler and Terry, a guy texted in and is like, it doesn't matter if we make the tournament because we don't have any pitching. Well, and that kind of gets under my skin a little bit. And Terry was like, well, the guy's probably just mad. And then Terry's like talking me back off the ledge.
Amazing how that turned around.
It's like that. I just don't see it. And I'm like Mitch, and I just don't see it. You play a whole season, and South Carolina's done a lot, and they got a few things, both eye test and metric wise, that play into their favor. Listen, I don't go do what you did last week. You got to play tighter games. And listen, you can hit some home runs this weekend. It's one of the things that's interesting, too. Mitch said that these Tennessee pitchers don't walk a lot of guys. South Carolina amongst the national leaders in drawing walks. So are you a little more inclined to force those UT pitchers into a few situations where they give you a free pass? Maybe so. But then don't leave them on. I mean,
or can you afford to be more aggressive?
Yeah. Thank you. That's where I really think this may go. Is Mark and Monty telling these guys, hey, you were swinging for it. For instance, the other day, I forget, it was game 3, and Carolina, they had, Petrie on second and tried to bunt him down, bunt him over. I don't know if I would have done that. I know Mark was like, I think at the time, I get it. He's like, hey, we were just trying to get another run across, and that we thought was a good opportunity.
In less than 48 hours ago, he had an RBI bunt double.
Yeah.
Ended up working pretty well.
So I get it. But with nobody out in that situation, maybe I'm making Georgia just pitch. And again, if it works, the coach is a genius. If it fails, the coach is a moron. And that is pretty much a universal thing with fans and coaches in sports, right? That is far from unique or specific to South Carolina baseball in 2024.
The second guessing are always results oriented.
Yeah, I mean we do it all the time. That's why shows like this and stations like this exist all over the country. Because that's what Mondays are for.
That's right. Mad Dog Russo, walked so we can run.
Right. But yeah, Elijah, I would agree, man. I think this weekend, maybe get up in the box, start swinging. You don't want to do it to the point where you're just flailing at everything. But Tennessee's pitching is not Arkansas's pitching. But Tennessee also, doesn't lose at home. And that's something you got to think about. Again, I think they're, what did I hear? Would you say 31-3 at home? That's very impressive. Is taking one enough to make you feel better about yourself? I don't know. If you took two, I don't think at this point, if you're a Carolina baseball player, coach, fan, observer, that you can sit here and begin to look at this weekend as a way to get back into the hosting conversation without a lot of help around you. This is more about just getting your mind back on track. You've been very competitive with very good teams. You don't win them all. You think about the Arkansas series, you played pretty well by and large against A&M, at least in moments. I thought you played really well against Arkansas. You just didn't,
you played some close games.
Yeah.
Exception to the last one.
So that's really, to me, the more important thing is rebuilding some confidence, because it was shot. And again, to give up 10 runs in the final 2 innings at home when you had a chance is that's a killer. And how long does it take to get over? You would rather have had a game last night, right? Just to exercise those particular demons. I don't know, but you don't.
To get something back on track.
Just something, right? Just anything, just to get a win. Feel good about going into another series with a win under your belt, as opposed to the way you lost to Georgia. But you don't, so. And again, we don't know yet if it's going to be Good, Jones, Gainey in terms of the rotation. But, again, if you're asking me what I would do, that's what I would do. We'll find out tomorrow what Coach Kingston and Coach Williams decide upon.
Yeah.
But that's what I would do.
And, back to the hitting, I guess, perspective. We did just get a call in the middle of this discussion from somebody from Greenville saying they need to jump on the first pitch a whole lot more frequently.
I
it kind of goes exactly what we're saying.
No,
A team that doesn't walk anybody.
Yeah.
That might be an option, is being afforded the aggression.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they've got it charted with how many first pitch strikes Tennessee pitchers throw. And I doubt it's something at this point that Tony Vitello will have his staff deviate from if they're good at doing that. So, yeah, jump all over it and see what happens. I mean, you got nothing to lose at this point, do you? Be right back. 4 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the second hour of the post-game show coming at you from the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia, South Carolina, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thanks again to Mitch Light of The Athletic for joining us in the last half hour, talking some college baseball. We'll talk Gamecock-specific stuff with the voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott. He is scheduled to be with us at the bottom of the hour for his regular Tuesday afternoon visit with us, although last week he had to do Wednesday. That's okay.
He's adaptable.
Yeah.
Like a good utility player
So are we.
in the middle infield.
So are we, yeah. Stressing the Manchester City-Tottenham match in North London right now.
Oh, buddy, stressing a Tottenham match? You're kidding.
As an Arsenal fan, I have to actually pull for Tottenham. It's kind of like we've said sometimes this year, like with Carolina fans, you don't want to hear it, but you might need to pull for Clemson a little bit in terms of your tournament hopes, your RPI, whatever.
Man.
And that's how it's going right now for me.
What a week it would be for South Carolina baseball fans who were told they had to cheer for Clemson by goobers like me to help their chances at hosting a home regional. Clemson still getting swept by Wake Forest, your favorite team getting swept by Georgia, and then watching Arsenal and cheering for them to have a chance to win the Premier League, and Tottenham end up blowing it whenever you're trying to cheer for them.
I almost feel like
That's just a hell of a week, man.
turn this off, but
all in a week.
I'm not going to do it. I'm gonna suck it up.
Well, now my misery's loving company.
ACC spring meetings are going on down in at Amelia Island, Florida, and this week may have taken a little interesting turn because of someone who's not there. According to WRAL in Raleigh, a North Carolina trustee, Dave Bolyak, has basically kind of said it's time to go. Quote, and of course he says Carolina, meaning that one up there. Quote, Carolina's ability to maintain excellence at a high level is going to require really prudent budgeting and revenue models and potential cost cutting. A lot of it is due to the revenue or lack thereof that we're not receiving from the ACC deal. He continued, it's not something you can chance with the snap of a finger. It's something we've got to be cognizant of. We can't sit back and cross our fingers and pray for pennies from heaven and think everything is going to work out. We have to actively pursue what's in the best interests of Carolina athletics. He went on to say, it's time for the Tar Heels to get serious about leaving the ACC for a higher performing conference with greater revenue sharing. And he continued, one last quote I'm going to give you. Quote, I am advocating for that. That's what we need to do. We need to do everything we can to get there. Or the alternative is the ACC is going to have to reconstruct itself. I think all options are on the table. That is current North Carolina trustee Dave Bolyak, who used to chair the Board of Trustees. So his word carries weight in the triangle and across the state of North Carolina and potentially beyond. Can't say I'm surprised at the notion for a former chairman and current trustee to be so willing to go public is interesting, rather than, say, the president of the school, the athletics director of the school, just some dude like what we do saying something like that. This is someone with influence. Yeah, I'm advocating to get out, because otherwise the ACC has to rebuild itself. Now, I don't know which one is more advantageous in the long term. In the short term, I do. If you can get out now, then you go to the Big Ten of the Southeastern Conference. And y'all, I'm telling you, both conferences would not only roll out the red carpet, they'll have a band playing, they'll have really nice hors d'oeuvres, they'll have high-end hooch at the bar. Come on in. And by the way, we got brunch scheduled for tomorrow. We got a round of golf for you the following day. Welcome
Oyster
party.
Dinner.
It's a welcome weekend, man. It ain't just like a welcome reception.
It's the real deal.
The difference, I think, this is something that you and I have been talking about, Elijah. And again, Elijah knows who I spoke with, but I spoke to somebody close to what's happening with the lawsuit. And one of the questions I asked was, behind the scenes, has anything really been done from a Clemson or FSU perspective to really attempt to rework how the ACC does business? We know that they had the performance incentives put in, and they're going to pay you more. Mm-hmm. You'll get to keep more of your bowl payout. You'll get to keep your units in basketball. Those are really the only ones that pay any money that are of any significance, right? So they've done that, but it's still that doesn't add up to $10 million.
Doesn't add up to what they want it
right
to add up to.
And so I asked, has more been done beyond that? And without going into great detail, no. We thought maybe one of them was going to, and then they didn't, is what I was told. And, yeah, again, I just suffice to say that there's some raw feelings because of that. So, and now we've just been waiting for North Carolina in some official capacity. And this maybe isn't the most official capacity, but it's a sitting board member and former chair going public on the airwaves in Raleigh. They're tired of sitting on the sideline, I think. North Carolina.
Well, I think they're trying to put a lot of pressure on the member schools to not lose them, because I think the other schools that rely on North Carolina to bring in a lot of revenue for the conference know that if North Carolina leaves, we are going to see what happened to the Pac-12, happen to the ACC in maybe faster time, because that will open up floodgates for Miami to want out, for Virginia to want out. Virginia, who will also be a coveted school. Yeah, exactly. Virginia Tech right behind them.
Yep.
Because of those, those TV markets in those states. So because of that, the survival of a lot of these other schools hinges on North Carolina staying. And I think this could be a wake-up call, something this public. And I think that's why you go public with this, right? Because if you really want out, you're probably working behind closed doors, and you don't want to play too much of your hand. I know they probably do want out if they can't get anything figured out and settled. But it would be easier to be able to settle things right now, or at least rework a TV deal that is more advantageous to you. And that's the crux of our whole problem here, right? Like, the TV deal is not getting you what you want for anybody involved, unless you're like, I don't know, Syracuse or Pitt. But the survival of these schools to stay in a power conference, and for schools like SMU, who just now got there and they're dying to be relevant as a power conference school, or Stanford and Cal that are Pac-12 refugees that are dying to still be relevant in terms of a power football sense, they need to wake up and help you renegotiate a deal that would be worth North Carolina entertaining to stay. And I think that's one of the reasons why you say this right now.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I've said to you too, if you're Boston College in Syracuse, you're making a lot more money, I guess, in the ACC than you would in the Big East. Is there a way to offset that and go back to the Big East? Could the ACC shrink?
I'd love a new Big East. Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Especially just those two, Pitt and Louisville, in terms of old Big East, a little bit different, because they're such big schools. Again, Pitt, everything about Pitt is Big Ten, including membership in the AAU. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything about Pitt is Big Ten.
A built-in rival with Penn State? Except
that Penn State and Ohio State will be like, the hell you are. Yeah, that won't happen.
And they already have like a bajillion teams in there. Yeah,
they just, but, and then Louisville, I don't know. I feel like Louisville has Big 12 written all over it.
Has to. Well, that's where there's room, too. Eventually, you got to go where there's room. Yeah. You got to go where there's room and go where it still makes sense. I think we're reaching the bubble of conference expansion is getting to the point where we're getting close to popping.
Yeah.
This bubble can only get so big before it does eventually pop, and no one's making the money they thought they were going to make in the long term. Which is why it's really important to see how this 12-team playoff goes, how the ratings are, how this new TV rights deal plays out, and how it ages. Because if it ages poorly, then there might be some irreparable harm done to some of these leagues.
One of the things about North Carolina, for as much as I've said, the SEC would love to have the University of North Carolina and the University of Virginia, and I do believe that. One thing that is interesting, the University of North Carolina, and I can't speak as much about UVA, but I know they care a lot about like lacrosse and men's soccer, in addition, obviously, to bigger sports. And I know people in Chapel Hill do. The Southeastern Conference doesn't have those sports, and North Carolina is very good at them. I'm talking
and values them.
Yes, the Big Ten does, and NC State and Virginia Tech might not care as much, but as you look to get into the new markets of the states of North Carolina and Virginia, I'm starting to just to read and look a lot more at how the Big Ten is simply a better fit. Not that the SEC couldn't be, but that the Big Ten is a better fit for North Carolina and Virginia because of some of the things that they value relative to the Southeastern Conference. That's not a knock on the SEC. Again, if the SEC had men's soccer and lacrosse, or if somebody in Chapel Hill called Greg Sankey and be like, hey, y'all thought about adding soccer and lacrosse? They're pretty popular these days, and there's a lot of kids from y'all's area that actually play it, and they're not going to your schools. We'd love to keep doing what we do, and y'all want to. I remember asking Mark Burson years ago, because, Clint Mathis and Josh Wolf were from Atlanta, and of course both played for America in the World Cup. And I asked Mark one time years ago. I was like, "You ever want the SEC to add men's soccer?" And he was like, "I really don't, because it might diminish what we do." He said, "If Georgia and Florida had men's soccer teams, we might be in a lot of trouble."
And they put forth resources to building them. Yeah,
because it just the built-in talent. I mean, Atlanta churns out talent for every sport you can imagine.
Right.
They probably got terrific table tennis players over there.
I can imagine the badminton's crazy.
But what they're doing in pickleball these days. But no, seriously. So I think that's something that actually works for the Big Ten in terms of luring North Carolina and Virginia ultimately. Which, as I've said before, if you get the 1B of NC State and Virginia Tech in the Southeastern Conference, you're doing fine. It's maybe not ideal because you'd rather have University of.
Right.
But, but again, for FSU and Clemson, I'm just not feeling it the way I am for new markets, And by the way, I saw a thing today from Nielsen. I don't have it in front of me right this second, but basically there are still more than 30 million people that are getting their television from cable in this country.
Yeah, still
a lot of people. Streaming is going up.
The rise of YouTube TV is pretty impressive.
It is.
I did see that.
That's what I have.
It is growing.
That's what I have.
It's very efficient.
I like it.
I love YouTube TV.
I like it.
I was talking to Michael Geddes, our friend from Integrated Media.
Oh,
he was telling me that is
he basically
that is what he
sold me
recommends to everybody.
Yeah, he sold me on it. Yeah,
I agree. It rules.
Yeah.
I don't have it, but my friends have it.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. And free DVR.
I did not know that. That was a feature.
Yep. Well, I say free, but built-in DVR, no extra cost like the cable company. Even though I do miss my old TiVo. Come back on the other side of the break. Speaking of TiVo, I used to record a lot of games. I still record games from time to time. The college football opening weekend games have been announced in terms of some times and where game day is going to be. We'll have that for you. And a quick look at the over-under win totals for SEC teams from Brett McMurphy and the Action Network. You're listening to the Postgame Show. 19 minutes after 4 o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. The voice of the Gamecock, Derek Scott, joining us a little bit later on this hour, talking more Gamecock baseball from his perspective. Carolina at Tennessee Thursday through Saturday to close out the regular season. Speaking of the regular season, ESPN and others, Fox has announced a few times as well, have put out their week 1 kickoff times. First off, college game day, the first college game day of the year, will be A&M hosting Notre Dame. I saw Tyler's old cohort, Logan Booker, say nobody gives a crap about this game. Why do they keep doing this? There's probably I don't know how they chose that one. I'm not saying you got to choose the Clemson-Georgia game.
Is that an on-campus game?
Clemson, Georgia?
No.
It's in College Station.
I guarantee you that's it.
Yeah.
You got to be on campus for these things.
Well,
the college game days where you're at a neutral site suck.
Yeah.
They're terrible.
Yeah. UF and Miami.
Juiceless. Juiceless environments.
Florida. UF Miami is in Gainesville.
Ooh, see, that would have been a decent one.
Yeah.
But also, Florida.
Yeah, but Texas A&M and Notre Dame, it's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care that much. But I just thought the way Logan put it was pretty funny on Twitter. But he covers Georgia, so he felt differently. I think he probably just, this is the best game. You should cover the best game kind of a thing. Speaking of Clemson, Georgia, that'll be at the Dome in Atlanta.
I don't know think that close of a game.
And it's at noon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels like a noon one to me. I think I'm going against the grain here. That feels noony.
Okay.
The Atlanta game every year I feel like is classic noon.
That Florida-Miami game will be at 3:30, and the A&M Notre Dame game will be at 7:30. So an ABC triple header. We'll all have to, around these parts at least, get used to the Southeastern Conference game of the week being at 3:30 on the Mouse's network now.
That's lame.
And not the Big I.
Yeah, that's lame. Sorry, Mickey.
Well, CBS had a chance, man.
They did, and it's lame that they didn't secure that bag.
They had right of first refusal, and they basically said, "Yeah, no, we're good."
Which is why there's 3 levels of lame here.
Yeah,
and that's just the first.
So officially, the first SEC game of the week on ABC will be Florida hosting Miami,
which I think will be more competitive than Georgia Clemson.
Do we have early lines on those games yet? I'm sure we do somewhere.
If I'm making one right now, I'm saying Georgia's probably an 11.5, 10.5, 11.5 point favorite.
Okay. Sunday, September 1, Southern Cal and LSU. Is that in Vegas?
It is in Vegas.
Yeah.
At the Big Roomba.
The week prior, by the way, Florida State will take on Georgia Tech in Ireland, because nothing says Ireland like Georgia Tech and Florida State football.
That's right. Nothing says celebrating,
At least when Notre
Irish
Dame
culture.
played Navy, it's like, well, there's a lot of Irish Catholics.
Or Boston College. They played Boston College over there one year.
Ireland is an island, so the Navy makes sense, even if it's the American Naval Academy.
Right.
But how Georgia Tech and Florida State?
I would love to know the thought process behind asking those schools to do it.
Anyway.
Not a single school that's wearing green.
Let's see. Saturday night on ESPN, Alabama and Western Kentucky. Texas and Oklahoma will be on ESPN with their openers as well. Oklahoma on a Friday night against Temple. The Longhorns have Colorado State Saturday afternoon at 3:30. Other times will be announced around the conference later on. CBS, by the way, its first Big Ten 3:30 game will be September 21 when Southern Cal visits Michigan.
Interesting.
So, yeah. There you go. So there's a few. More of these
weird.
Coming out. Let me see here. There's nothing else of real interest.
Uncomfortably weird to think that Southern Cal and Michigan's a conference game. It's disgusting.
That's true.
I hate that. I hate it. The passion of 1,000 suns.
Speaking of college football, staying with that, Brett McMurphy and his team at the Action Network have put out their over-under win totals for the Southeastern Conference. I'll kind of go through these first, and then we'll discuss. The top 2 teams, both at over-unders of 10.5. One you can guess easy. Who's the other? Georgia is one. Who's the other?
I've already seen it, so
Okay,
I'm not
so
going
you know.
to answer. But I was kind of, well, not really surprised, but a little to think that they had the same over/under
Yeah,
total.
Texas at 10.5. Yeah,
Longhorns.
we'll come back to that one. Bama, LSU, Missouri, Mississippi, and Tennessee, all at over/under 9.5.
Tennessee at 9.5 is interesting. I think I would have set it closer to 8.
Or you just take the under and try to win.
Hey, look at you.
A&M. A&M is alone at 8.5. Auburn and Oklahoma, 7.5. Yeah, one of those I'm like, The other one's like, yeah, okay.
I'm not high on Auburn still.
Kentucky alone at 6.5. Arkansas, Florida, South Carolina, 5.5.
Sounds right for all of them, for all involved.
That's fair. Mississippi State alone at 4.5, and Vanderbilt is a 2.5 when it comes to an over/under win total. Yeah, look, Texas. I know Texas is good. I know they were in the college football playoff. I know they've got one of the better starting quarterbacks returning, as does Georgia. I know Sark is a good developer of offensive talent, and Texas has been recruiting well. I'm just not ready to say Texas is, quote, back, because I don't know what that really means. So I'm just not there yet. Georgia, I would take the over. Bama, LSU, Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Mizzou and Tennessee, I'm taking the under, even if it's just a little bit. Mississippi, I don't know, man. Again, I'm buying some of the hype around Ole Miss because they've done so well in the portal, and they've recruited pretty well, too, from the high school ranks.
Yep.
LSU, this time last year, I would have told you that now I'm looking at LSU in 2024 as a true national championship contender, and I don't know if I'm still feeling that way.
Oh, no.
I thought the way Brian Kelly would trend, that year 3 would be the year where you could really look at him and go, all right, here they come. And they might still. I don't know. But I'm not quite there yet. And Alabama, I expect Alabama to win 10 games.
Yeah.
Because they're Alabama. Yeah,
exactly.
I just do it. And DeBoer has a hell of a track record. Auburn and Oklahoma at 7, and A&M at 8.5. Yeah, because, that's what they do. They're 8-4 every year, man. That's what A&M is.
Hammer that under, baby.
Seriously.
Hammer that under.
I told you all this a bunch last year, too. Go look up the last 30 seasons of A&M football, and it pretty much averages out to 8-4. That's who they are.
And if the prop bet is asking the over to go over that expectation,
I'm not judging.
I know how to win you money.
I'm not judging. I'm just telling you. Just go. You don't want to believe me? Go look it up. That's pretty much what they do. Is they average 8-4. But Auburn and Oklahoma at 7.5. Auburn, I don't know.
I'll believe it when I see it, pal. That's where I'm at with Auburn.
Can Auburn go 4-4 in conference play? I need to look at I don't have their record or their schedule in front of me, but Oklahoma, I'm taking the over.
See, they're interesting. They're very interesting. Defensive-minded head coach. They have a 5-star kid that's going to be making his starting debut at quarterback. I know he started in the bowl game, and there were some ups and downs, but watching that bowl game, you see the arm talent. Like Jackson Arnold's got a ton of talent. If they can rein that in, and I know it's a bummer for them to lose Jeff Levy as OC, and I'm not really sure who's exactly going to be calling the plays there, but you got the quarterback that you want. You just can't screw it up in terms of play calling and messing up an offense that might not be suited for him. They're a wild card. I'm maybe not as bullish on them as you might be, but I'm fascinated by them. I think I'm more fascinated by them than intrigued at their prospects of contention.
I just think it's interesting that as they come into the league with Texas, despite what Texas did last year, that Oklahoma is seen as that much worse than Texas.
As a rung or two below.
Yeah, because I just can't buy into that. Now, again, maybe that's my historical bias coming in terms of how I view Oklahoma, who has long been the powerhouse program of the Big 12 Conference.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, rightfully so.
It's really not even close. The Red River game, maybe they split it from time to time and whatever. And
Red River gets weird.
Yeah, it does. But Oklahoma has consistently been a much better program than Texas. So is Texas really that much better? I mean, look, these are betting numbers. So
And look, Texas lost a lot in the NFL draft too. A lot of that defense that they relied on last year, which was a really good defense, they lost the cornerstones of it. I know they recruit really well. I know they transfer portaled really well, but that's a lot of production to replace defensively to still have to go at Michigan, host Georgia, and have to go at Texas A&M at the end of the year, which could be tough. It's a rivalry game, so things can get weird. And you still have to play Oklahoma, which, like we said, Red River gets really weird. There's a lot of chances for this to get uncomfortable for Texas because of that defensive replacement.
you can check out Brett McMurphy on Twitter. Go to the Action Network website and see more of what's going on with these over-under totals. But interesting. And again, Carolina at 5.5. I imagine most Carolina fans will slightly choose the over on that one. Speaking of Carolina fans, you'll want to hear what the voice of the Gamecocks has to say about the final weekend of the baseball season and what happened against the Georgia Bulldogs. Derek Scott joins us coming up.
I know we talked a lot about SEC over-unders, but if you would have set an over-under at the amount of weight I've lost in the last month at 15.5, buddy, you better hammer the over because my friends at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss helped me reach that goal. It's a goal that I set when I got into this weight loss journey to make myself feel a little better, to get myself in better shape, maybe start playing basketball again and feeling more confident in my own body. I've been working with Columbia Secret for Weight Loss, and Paul Grant and Shaylin over there at their office has helped me a ton, not just reach that goal, but surpass it. I'm at 20 right now in terms of pounds lost in this whole process, and they can help you out a lot too. And they're doing so without, unnecessary pills, shots. And really, it's just a lifestyle change. They help you change your lifestyle to have better eating habits, better life habits, helps you sleep better, helps you feel better. Highly recommend that you give them a call at 803-824-4210 or go to ColumbiaSecretForWeightLoss.com to learn the secret of losing up to 1 pound of unhealthy fat per day and start your own success story. From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that might be causing some delays on the roadways this afternoon. We're going to start here in Richland County. An accident over at Decker Boulevard at Percival Road is causing some issue, as well as one at Killian Road at Highway 555 near Farrow Road. We also have an accident at Lower Richland Boulevard at Garner's Ferry Road. That's causing some issues, as well as one on Park Lane Road at US 1 and Two Notch Road. In Lexington County, we got a couple more accidents as well, starting with one on Two Notch Road at Highway 6 and South Lake Drive. And lastly, we have one over near West Columbia. It looks like it's on Gardner's Terrace Road. That's going to be at US 321.
Talk some more Carolina baseball with our good friend Derek Scott, the voice of the Gamecocks. He was on the call, of course, with Stuart Lake as Carolina got beat by Georgia all 3 days last weekend. He'll be heading up to Knoxville to take on, or he won't take them on. Although you might need all the help you can get at this point. So, Derek, grab a bat, see what happens. I know it was not a pleasurable experience for you and Coach Lake in the booth this weekend. I said on Twitter I didn't see that coming. I know Georgia's playing great baseball. But just a few weeks ago, as Coach Kingston pointed out, Dylan Eskew shut out the number one team in the country, the Kentucky Wildcats, and it's all just kind of gone south from there for Gamecock pitching. Take us through your perspective, especially late Saturday afternoon when you realized the sweep was coming.
Yeah, it's a head-scratcher. There's no doubt. You've got some guys who are really pitching it well early in the season, first half of the season, who have lost that momentum, lost that confidence, whatever it is. It's really not a year like last year where the hot play was, derailed by injuries. It's not been that at all. It's just some guys who have not been able to sustain what they were doing or have not consistently been able to put it together. And that's frustrating. But, on the one hand, I think about the standpoint of if we're all trying to live in that old world of starting pitching being the key, going 6 innings out of those days are gone. So it's not a problem if somebody in the bullpen is going to pick you up. But right now, the Georgia series are just, other than Gainey, there just wasn't much positive to speak of at any of those 3 days. And, to some degree, you have to give Georgia credit because they are an elite offense. They're, really old, really physically mature. They're one of those teams, Jay, that I think once we get out of the COVID era, we're not going to see that anymore because those are old dudes, man. Those are adults, and those are guys who at times you watch them and the way they handle their at-bats and you think, this is weird because nobody gets fooled by anything. Nobody's chasing breaking balls. And in other weekends, whether it's Kentucky or Vanderbilt or even series you don't necessarily win, you can get guys out, Right. That's the crazy thing to me about what Georgia was doing. And Vanderbilt had the same feelings, I think, the week before talking to some guys in Nashville. I was like, this is crazy. These guys don't chase. They are just in control of every at-bat. So at least right now, they're in a really good place, and South Carolina's not from a pitching standpoint. And they've got to try and flip the script in a place where flipping the script is really hard for anyone the last few years.
You did mention the struggles with the pitching staff right now, but Garrett, being the bright spot, I think maybe opens the door to an opportunity to make him a starter at the back end of the weekend. And look, I know in baseball circles, there's always been discussion of, whether or not saving your best pitcher for later in the game and all the discussion that leads up, to the strategy behind when you place pitchers. But I'm of the belief that I think it'd be a good idea to start Garrett at the beginning of games, and that way you might be able to get a little deeper into them without trailing by the time you get to the bullpen. But what are your thoughts on that? What you see from him in that starting role, and is that something that you expect to see moving forward?
I was really impressed with him, Elijah, and I think Mark Kingston would, tell you if he were drinking the truth serum, that's exactly what he wants to do. But this weekend might be different only because you are looking at this Tennessee series now based on circumstances as a series in which you need to win a game. You just have to look at, we can't get swept here. We need a win in terms of postseason. And so I think if you get, since they didn't announce any starters for the weekend, we don't know where they're going to start on Thursday night. We know where it begins. We know it can't be Gainey to begin the game on Thursday because he just pitched Saturday. But the reality of it is if you get late in the game Thursday and you got a lead, you can't worry about waiting until Saturday to let him start. If he's your best option to come in and finish, which he looks like he is, you've got to burn it. You've got to try and get a win. And same thing if that doesn't happen Thursday, but it turns out Friday, you've got that opportunity. Again, you can't wait till Saturday and say we need him for 6 innings. What you need is a win. And so I think it's all hands on deck. I think that's exactly why Coach Kingston went with the TBA, is he's going to manage this thing more even than normally, one game at a time. Can't worry about tomorrow. If there's an opportunity to win a game, you throw everything you've got at that singular game, and then live with the consequences on the following days.
Talking to Derek Scott, the voice of the Gamecocks, Carolina at Tennessee. 6:30 starts on Thursday and Friday, 2 o'clock to close out the regular season Saturday afternoon in Knoxville. Gamecocks average 7 runs a game against Georgia, and we know they can score a lot of runs, Derek. Elijah and I have been talking today, a little bit yesterday, too. Is aggressiveness at the plate something that Carolina needs to use? Is the best defense just an even better and more productive offense? Where might there be places where Carolina could do even more in an attempt to score runs?
Well, I don't know that you want to get away at this late point in the season from the philosophy that you've been preaching all year. That can really put guys in an awkward position and a level of uncertainty if you've been telling them all year, hey, be patient, work counts, don't chase anything out of your zone. And then, you're leading the country in walks most of the year, and then you get to the end of the year, and it's like, hey guys, everything I told you since February, forget that. We got to come up hacking. I can't imagine that's anything the coaches would feel good about trying to put into their players' brains. You just, like you just said, the runs have not been the problem lately. So don't mess with that. Just let those guys keep doing what they're doing. Tennessee has probably better arms than Georgia overall, but certainly if you look at the last few weeks, the Bulldogs are in a good spot because their lineup is so powerful and their pitching has been much better of late. And so Tennessee has some guys, but not like the rotation they've run out there the last couple of years. So you don't go in there thinking, wow, we're going to be hard pressed to score. I think this offense can score against Tennessee. It's just a matter of what they can do to kind of, contain that ball offense.
And Jay and I have talked a lot during the season and in the last few weeks, and maybe what the importance of Hoover is going to be to this team, because historically it's kind of been a house of horrors for this franchise, for this program at times. But with the sweep this past weekend and the juggernaut you got ahead of you in Knoxville this weekend, how much emphasis do you think there's going to be for this team to have to make a solid run in Hoover here very soon?
Yeah. Well, you certainly would like to see some wins there, but, there's a few teams in that same category. If you look at it, Florida's going to be there. Vanderbilt's going to be there for sure, just off the top of my head. Those two plus South Carolina, they need those wins. Ole Miss will be there in that same category. And the challenge with that always is you're having to turn around and play on a Tuesday. And who do you have that's ready to pitch on Tuesday that you didn't just use up pretty well Thursday through Saturday at Knoxville? That, to me, has always been the question of how much emphasis can you really put on Hoover if you don't have an arm that's ready to go there, that's rested. And if you remember last year, South Carolina was bringing Will Sanders back from an injury and have been, were positioned, had a weekend guy ready to pitch on a Tuesday, and that has not always been the case. So to me, that's also the question mark is, okay, who do you plan to use? And if you find a way to a win somewhere in Knoxville, do you then just look at one particular guy and say, okay, instead of me thinking you're going to be part of the plans tomorrow, we're just going to shut you down until Tuesday and count on you stepping up for us and trying to, in that big ballpark, if it's a sinker baller like Eli or Dylan, can you have more success there? A park that plays big than what you have in most SEC, home stadiums, like especially like Lindsey Nelson Stadium.
Got about a minute left for you. So your level of concern, 1 to 10, on missing the postseason, because that's a poll question we're running today. And I'll tell you right now, I have virtually no fear of Carolina missing the tournament. Your level of concern, 1 to 10, is what?
I'm closer to you. I would definitely not be putting this thing even at a yellow light. 1 to 10, I guess you say a 2. And I say that because I feel like, the guys on the committee are going to evaluate the whole season, not just the last 2 weeks. They're going to look at the schedule strength and realize that of the 5 elite teams at the top of the standings in the SEC and national, you take the big 4 in the SEC and you take Clemson, and this bunch has had to play all of them. After Tennessee, they will have played 14 games against the top 5 teams of the country, and there's nobody else in the country, not just in the league. There's nobody else in the country that will say anything that resembles that. So I think that will certainly help their cause. And then I still believe this team certainly go to Knoxville and be competitive and bounce back. And if you win one in Knoxville, you're going to feel a lot better about that situation too.
Good stuff as always, sir. Safe travels this week. We appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
You bet. That's the voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, D. Scott Gamecocks, to follow along on Twitter. I want to follow up with a couple things he had to say as the postgame show continues. Welcome back into the postgame show on this Tuesday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you. The craft beer card is back. You can spend $30 per brewery at 12 craft beer locations all across the Midlands. That is a $360 value. You get it for only $79. Go to 1075thegame.com, click on Sweet Deals, and one of those craft beer cards could be yours. Manchester City is now up 2-0 on Tottenham.
No, they're not. Don't want to talk about it.
Thanks for nothing, Spurs. Elijah has put out a poll question for you today as it relates to South Carolina baseball and its postseason opportunities.
Yeah, I'd much rather talk about this. Get me out of my misery. Poll question of the day. Do you think the Gamecocks are in any danger of missing the NCAA baseball tournament? Yes or no? Pretty straightforward. We've had 372 votes. And it's right down the middle. 50.5% say yes, the Gamecocks are in danger of missing the NCAA baseball tournament. 49.5% say no, they're not.
Is the
schism.
Is recency bias in full effect here?
1,000%, yes. Okay. 1,000%. This is an interesting study
of
recency bias.
And I also wonder, too, again, not a judgment, an observation, part of my job. How much of that majority, which is a slim majority, is ready for change at the top of the program and allows that to fuel their feeling relative to the resume? I don't know.
We're at 50% for both now. We just got to vote as we speak. 378 votes, and it is split evenly down the middle.
That's crazy. Yeah, I don't have that concern. That any of you do. I get it. I guess I get it. I certainly don't agree with it.
Yeah. I mean, look, just the whole body of work and looking at other teams that are actually on the bubble, and you compare the resume, compare the things that the committee's going to look at, I just don't foresee there being 32 other at-large resumes better than yours. And I understand maybe struggling under 500 against the teams that you play that are really good on your schedule. Being under 500 in quad one is normally concerning. But at the same time, you've heard Derek, you've heard Mitch today talk about this team. After they play Tennessee, we'll have played the top 7 teams in the RPI, and they have a respectable record against them. And outside of the first quadrant, you're 24-3. You're almost automatic against teams that you're supposed to beat, right? And that's a good sign. And heaven forbid you win one of these games in Knoxville, then you have a win against, the number 6 RPI team on the road. You'll have had a neutral site win against the number 5 RPI team. You'll have had a home win against the number 4 RPI team. You'd have had a home win against the number 2 RPI team. And then you would have taken 2 or 3 against the number 1 RPI team in the country. That on its own is going to get you in.
Yeah. The resume is really good. Last weekend sucked.
Yes. Oh, it was miserable.
Let's not even get that out of the way. We all 100% agree on that.
Yes.
It sucked. It was horrible. It was dreadful. It was brutal. It was awful. It was any other, adjective you want to throw on it that has a big, giant negative connotation.
Cruel and unusual punishment for some fans.
But it didn't derail the season.
No. Damper.
Again, it took you out of hosting, and that sucks too.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat anything.
I would have loved to have gone to another game this year. That'd been awesome.
Playoff games are fun, man, but you're still going to the playoffs. Again, is there a path? Derek made a good point when he was speaking with us in the last segment. And you and I had already touched on it, and he's just sort of, reiterating it for us. This team's ability to throw a bunch of starting pitchers out there is now, it's on the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do want to make a run of, say, at least 4 games where you went 2-2 at the SEC tournament, you might have to win those games 11-10. Yeah. And you can do that.
You're built to be able to do that. That's the thing, too. This lineup hits really well. And the fact that you're still averaging over 7 runs a game in the weekend you got swept, it does paint the picture of how bad the pitching was. But if you're able to just have, the pitching get a little bit better, you're going to be able to steal some games. And if you go 2-2, like you said, in that stretch, if you're able to win, a game or two in Hoover, you can build a case to being a strong 2. And when you're the stronger 2 seed you are, the worse of the 1 you have to play, right? The worst regional you'll have to participate in. And that would be a really good sign. Like, look, it would be nice, even if you crawl back up to like the 19 overall seed and you're playing at Dallas Baptist, right? You would say that's a winnable region. I think anybody would agree that's a very winnable region. And then we're looking at this team significantly different if they're in a super regional round than how we've been looking at them over the weekend and talking about them the last couple days. The pitching's a glaring weakness, but you still have a path to be able to achieve something that you set out to achieve at the beginning of the year. So it's not over yet, despite how, gut punching it was this past weekend.
Headlines of the day coming up for you. Mark Kingston spoke earlier. We'll have some of that. Drive around the SEC. We'll revisit some of the over-under win totals for those of you who missed it for SEC football coming up. Plenty more to do in the final hour of the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell on this Tuesday. Be right back.
From the WIS Traffic Studio, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to that are causing some delays on the roadways here this Tuesday afternoon. And we're going to start here in Richland County. We've got three, it looks like, that are causing some issues, and one on Forest Drive near Highway 12. It's over near Percival Road. Got another one at Lower Richland Boulevard at Garner's Ferry Road. And we also have one on US 176. That's near Broad River Road and Piney Grove Road. We only have one in Lexington County so far, and that's over at St. Andrews Road at I-26.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Tuesday. It's the final hour of the postgame show as well, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you for being with us. We start with the Atlanta Braves winning last night by a count of 2-0 in Atlanta. Zach Short made the most of his first ever start as an Atlanta Brave. Scoreless tie with a run-scoring double in the sixth. Shota Imanaga of the Cubs pitched pretty well, but the Braves spoiled it. And Ronald Acuna had a single in RBI last night as well, driving in Zach Short. Atlanta holds on for the 2-0 win. Short was playing because Austin Riley is suffering from what they say is tightness in his left side. I'll read verbatim from the AP report. Snitker said an MRI showed only inflammation in Riley's left side. Snit says Riley will have more treatment on Tuesday, but is not expected to spend time on the IL. I don't know if this thing's been an issue for him for longer, and now it's really flaring up. You know, he hadn't been himself. Acuna hadn't been himself. The Braves are still scoring runs and winning games, but they have not looked like the team of last year. There's time to turn it around. Look, I'm a spoiled Braves fan. I freely admit that. And I do remember that around the All-Star break, the year the Braves won the World Series, Braves were struggling. Mm-hmm. So I get it. I'm not here to go, what the heck? I mean, I have seen some I mean, you think like Gamecock fans, like, I mean, man, some Braves fans, I'm like, y'all, they're not going 150-12.
Yeah.
You know?
You only had the best offense in the history of the sport last year in terms of home run hitting. I mean, there's also some just natural regression here, too.
Yeah.
When you do something like that, the chances of replicating it on a year-to-year basis is just not a reasonable ask.
No. But the Cubs are playing pretty good baseball this year, too. They're 24-18, but the two teams go at it again tonight at 7:20. Chris Sale on the hill for Atlanta. He's 5-1 with a 2.95. Jamison Talion goes for the Cubs. He is 3-0 with a 1.13.
And he was bad last year.
Yeah.
He had a bad year last year, and he's just come out on fire.
Against the Cubs in his career, Chris Sale has a 1.23 ERA in 3 appearances. So we'll see what happens tonight. Braves and Cubs from Atlanta. To the NBA we go next. Last night in the association, a couple of interesting games. Both of them closer than some had been the day prior. The Celtics edged the Cavaliers in Cleveland, 109-102. Boston takes a 3-1 lead in this best of 7. They'll be back at it in Boston in a couple of days. And the Thunder last night behind Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 100-96 winners. He really played well last night on the road. I'm trying to I'll go for his whole numbers here. Hang on if I can get back to it. 42 minutes last night, 34 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks on 14 of 27 shooting. Very good for him last night. Chet Holmgren, who I'm glad has gained some weight, 40 minutes last night, 6 of 9 from the floor, including a three-pointer, 18 points, 9 boards for the big man, 4 blocks as well. OKC is really good.
You earned the number 1 seed in the West for having a team like that. And, You know, as much as the three-point revolution has completely changed the aesthetic of basketball, not just at the NBA, but at the college level too, it is kind of fun watching Shai Gilgeous-Alexander last night score that many points on mostly mid-range jumpers. If you go look at his shot chart, you couldn't tell me that shot chart happened in a game in 2024.
Meanwhile, last night, Kyrie and Luka combined to go 10 of 31 for 27 points. Luka at least had 12 rebounds and 10 assists. So he had a triple-double last night. Kyrie was crap, 4 of 11, missed both three-pointers, didn't get to the line, had 1 rebound, scored 9 points in 41 minutes. So, anyway, Dallas probably deserved to lose last night, but the Thunder played good defense on those dudes. Anyway, tonight in the NBA, if my computer will cooperate, I'll get you tonight's schedule.
Pacers-Knicks should be tonight.
That is. There you go. Pacers and the Knicks tonight
Game 5.
at 8 o'clock from the Garden. And the T-Wolves will be at Denver. Both those series are tied at 2 games apiece. For the Pacers and Knicks series, the home teams have won. In the T-Wolves and Nuggets series, the road teams have won every game. So will something give tonight, or will the trends hold? If anything, I would say the trends don't hold and Denver wins at home.
If anything, I think both trends won't hold.
Yeah, I think Pacers.
I can see the Pacers with no OG Anunoby. That's a tough loss because he is so good defensively. And the Pacers score a ton of points. Defensively, they're not much. But they've been playing good enough, and you can tell the Knicks are gassed, man.
Yeah.
They have a very small rotation. They don't dive deep into that bench. I mean, Tom Thibodeau had to reluctantly play Alec Burks more than 15 minutes in the last 2 games. That guy didn't see more than 1 or 2 minutes of action that entire first series. He's now forced to play that guy 18 to 20 minutes. And the Pacers have been playing a good 9 to 10 man rotation the entire playoffs. All playoff long, they've been doing that, right? Tyrese Halliburton barely had to play in the second half of Game 4. I think the Pacers end up stealing one in New York tonight. I think Denver takes care of Minnesota in what will be a really good game. But, we were ready to bury the Nuggets after games 1 and 2.
Yeah, well,
that's what champions do. I was not. Yeah,
I was not.
I was not.
I was not. They're too good.
Yes, they will figure it out.
Yeah.
When you are really good and you have smart players and smart coaches, you will figure stuff out.
Yeah, I just think they're too good. That game, the Pacers-Knicks, is at 8 at 7:30 tonight on ESPN2.
The Deuce.
The Connecticut Sun will host the Indiana Fever in the season opener for both in the WNBA. You can probably guess why I think that might be something that is tune-in worthy. That will be Caitlin Clark's first career regular season game tonight. It's the first time in I think about a decade I saw this morning that the Connecticut Sun have sold out their home opener.
Wow.
It's on ESPN2. I'm serious when I ask this. More viewers tonight.
Ooh.
Knicks Pacers or Fever and Sun?
Ooh, that's close. Even though, ooh, man. Wow. That's a tough question.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not,
because this series has, if it was like 3-1 in favor of one of the teams, I would definitely go,
Knick fans
Fever
are
game.
rabid, and there will be plenty of them watching this game.
Yes.
There's no doubt of that.
Indiana fans and people that live in Indiana are also very in on this Pacers team.
But guess who they're also in on?
That's
Caitlin.
True. That's true.
So the state
It's
of
the debut.
Indiana's fans could be a little more split.
It's a 2 TV kind of night.
Yeah, it's interesting. And again, I'm not here to predict, but Caitlin Clark is going to change she's already changing the dynamic of the WNBA, and this is opening day of the WNBA. They're talking about charter airplanes, more games on either broadcast or cable television relative to the internet, streams. I will be anxious to see. I got a hunch because it's a Knick playoff game that game does better. But I don't think this is one of those things where they double the number, because I think a lot of casual fans that have become fans of Caitlin Clark will tune in to ESPN2 to watch her play tonight. And there could be, as you said, a 2 TV night or a lot of split. The women's game will end a little earlier. Mm-hmm. So, it could well be that by the fourth quarter, the Knick Pacer game gets a big spike in viewers. But again, it's interesting that Indiana is involved in both.
And in this market, there's something to watch for, too, because Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin on the same team is going to be an interesting dynamic. It's going to be a very interesting dynamic. And it gives you more to watch, even in this market where, Caitlin Clark has been seen as a villain, or I guess maybe more of a villainous role, but you get to see her team up with one of the best players in the history of the program here.
South Carolina trails only Connecticut in terms of alumni playing in the WNBA.
10 Gamecocks that are on opening night rosters.
So that's pretty cool. But tonight, 7:30, the Fever and the Sun. Staying with basketball, and Elijah told me this about an hour or so ago, maybe during a commercial break, maybe in the first hour, but Doug Gottlieb has been hired as the basketball coach at what is now just called Green Bay. It is formerly the University of Wisconsin at Green Bay. Yes, it's that Doug Gottlieb, former Oklahoma State basketball player and longtime sports talk show host. He was one of the final candidates last year, but the coach that did it, Sundance Wicks,
also a real name.
Yeah, left after just one season to become head coach at Wyoming. I mean, come on. Your name is Sundance and you're coaching in Wyoming? Like, you better not ever leave, dude.
You can't convince me he wasn't born at Burning Man.
I didn't know Gottlieb wanted to do this. He's not ever been a head coach. He was an assistant at, back a few years ago at the Maccabiah games with Bruce Pearl. That's about it. Otherwise, he just talks basketball. So... interesting move here.
I've read he's always wanted to get into coaching. I didn't think a team would actually hire him to be the head coach. And not only hire him to be the head coach, he's going to keep his radio show. He's going to be a radio show host and a Division I college basketball coach at the same time, as if those dudes don't have enough going on already to have to recruit, re-recruit, portal recruit, practice plan, do practice, scout, and then do games and travel. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
I'd
give it a month and a half.
Right. It's not a conflict of interest per se.
It's a conflict of your time.
But it is
24 hours in the day, brother.
And how do you, look, he does a national show, so let's face it, the Green Bay Phoenix aren't going to be
national
really
news.
Big part of what he's doing. But I don't know. You like in the throes of your season, you can't do a 3-hour radio show.
Absolutely not. It's a terrible idea.
Because even if you tried, someone else is completely prepping your show.
Yeah, you're not doing it.
Yeah, you're not doing your show.
You're not prepping one or the other.
No.
You're not prepping for basketball games, or you're not prepping your show.
I don't see how that happens.
It's remarkable.
But Gottlieb is from Wisconsin, if you couldn't tell by his accent. So there's that.
It's a homecoming.
So we'll see how that works out for him. And finally, we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I'll say again in a more succinct way, but the University of North Carolina has one of its trustees and former board chairs, Dave Bullock, on the record this week saying that he is going to advocate for the University of North Carolina to leave the Atlantic Coast Conference. Quote, "It's not something you can chance with the snap of a finger. It's something we've got to be cognizant of. We can't sit back and cross our fingers and pray for pennies from heaven and think everything is going to work out. We have to actively pursue what's in the best interests of Carolina athletics." And on leaving the ACC, he said, quote, "I am advocating for that. That's what we need to do. We need to do everything we can to get there, or the alternative is the ACC is going to have to reconstruct itself. I think all options are on the table." I strongly urge the schools and leadership of the Atlantic Coast Conference to do the latter there and reconstruct itself. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how hard you have to work with Disney to change some of the things that they are doing for you. I have said all along throughout this process of Florida State and Clemson suing that conference that maybe those schools' time and effort and money would be better spent on attempting to reconstruct the ACC. I know they did a little bit of that last year. Can you take that next step or steps in the process? I do not want to see the Atlantic Coast Conference go away.
It's bad for college sports.
Yeah, the Pac-12 didn't need to go away, and it's incredibly ironic how good their football and basketball seasons were in their final year. We don't need that. So I seriously hope that those in the ACC will find a way to preserve that conference. Maybe not in its current roster makeup of schools, but we can't just see it go away. It just can't. It just that would be terrible. It's already terrible with the Pac-12. Like, we can't have another one. I get there's change coming, but there's a way to do both. There really is a way to do both. So
always has been.
We'll see. That's our integrated media headlines of the day. 803-948-8327. Whatever your home theater wants and needs are, make it happen with integrated media. Even doing things like installing that video doorbell or security cameras around the house, moving stuff around, or a brand new outdoor system, or whatever you want when it comes to home theater and home security. 803-948-8327. No job too big or small for my good friends at Integrated Media. Mark Kingston spoke to the media today before the team heads to Knoxville. Hear what he had to say when the postgame show continues. 20 minutes after 5 o'clock, Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. Do want to remind you, just had this confirmed while we've been on the air this afternoon. South Carolina Athletics Director Ray Tanner will be our special guest tomorrow afternoon to open the show. So from 3 until 4
Big news.
tomorrow, we will have Coach Tanner on the program. Certain we will discuss baseball. We'll discuss off-season basketball, some football, the state of affairs across the conference. Are you letting Clemson and FSU into the SEC? I'm sure Ray will be really anxious to answer that one.
And I'm sure I'm sure he's already looking forward to that question.
So that and more tomorrow. Coach Tanner live from 3 to 4. And listen, okay, let me just go ahead and say and prep some of you. Yes, we will ask him about the baseball team and the baseball team's head coach. Please don't think that Ray Tanner, as a proud coach himself, is, during a season, going to say anything about the long-term future of the baseball team. Because I'm going to tell y'all right now, he's not. We'll ask, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to say anything. He's going to say they still have games to play. We're looking forward to the NCAA tournament, and we always do a postseason evaluation. I'm just going to go ahead and tell y'all. Spoiler alert, as the kids like to say. All right?
Good call.
Thanks.
I really hope he's listening. That way he'll say that verbatim whenever
Spoiler.
you do ask him.
Right.
Yeah, he will say the entire spiel
record
verbatim.
it and play it back.
And just play it back in your voice for him. He's like, that's my comment.
By the way, our good friend Michael Geddes of Integrated Media says, wait, you radio guys have to prep a show? I thought you just worked 3 hours a day. My dear mother, may she rest in peace. I was taking her when she was sick. I was picking her up from a doctor's appointment. It's like 11 o'clock. This is when I was doing 1 to 4. And I'd been with her at the doctor's office and things like that. And she's like, well, hey, can we go do so? I'm not going to do my mom voice, you know. I was like, Mom, I got a show to do. She's like, well, you don't go on until 1. And I was like, yes, ma'am, but I got
Gotta get ready.
I haven't done it. She's like, oh, I just kind of thought you went and just like, it was sweet because my mother just felt like my son is so good at his job. He just shows up and does it.
And just reels it all off.
know.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I actually, kind of have to go get ready. Mark Kingston spoke today ahead of Carolina's trip to Knoxville. We won't give you, he only went about 7 minutes, and we have that about before we have to take a break. But here's most of what Coach Kingston had to say.
Hard to believe it's the last weekend of conference play already. This season really has flown by. So getting ready to head on the road to #1 team in the country. So very excited about that opportunity. And then after that, the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament. So as Bill Belichick would say, right now we're on to Tennessee, and that's our focus.
Start with Al.
You have a weekend rotation for this series yet?
Not ready to announce it yet. Not ready to announce it.
Hey, Mark, do you feel like there's a sense of urgency, after this past weekend to get, back on track as quickly as possible? And then, that's also including the fact that you guys maybe need another win or two to, leave no doubt about your regional hopes of whether it's hosting or wherever you guys go?
Sense of urgency is something that's always in an SEC baseball program. I wouldn't say there's ever not a sense of urgency, and that starts on day 1 of the fall. There's always a sense of urgency. If you have to ramp that up because you had a tough weekend, then something's wrong. We always have a sense of urgency, and the guys know that every day is to be taken advantage of, and so that never changes.
Speaking of, obviously, the regionality, you obviously with the guys, you tell them 1 game at a time, you keep them focused, but have y'all had any conversations as a staff about what you're kind of thinking you want to get out of this weekend to try and put yourself in a good position?
You can't look too far ahead because it does you no good. You just have to try to win the next game. And if you win the next game, then you try to win the game after that. Belaboring RPIs and all that stuff, it does nothing to help you win the games. And so at the end of the season, they look at your RPI, they look at your record, they look at your strength of schedule, and they decide who did enough to get in the NCAA tournament. So all we can do is control what we can control, and that's to try to win baseball games. And everything else is a byproduct of that.
The pitching staff this past weekend had a rough weekend top to bottom. How do you approach as a coach handling their emotions, and how do you go about handling a staff when you're just trying to find the right guy? Do you go back to what you feel like your best guys are, or do you try to blow things up and find something different?
Yeah, I think number one is they've got to know we have their back, because I think that's really important, because confidence is such a big part of success. And so they need to know we have their back. Even if we change their role, it doesn't mean we don't believe in you. It just means that we think this might be a better role for the team and for you right now. And so I think that's the number one thing, is just to continue to let them know we think we can win with you. We know we can win with you. We're going to make some adjustments potentially, but when you get the ball, go out there and be the best you can be. Obviously, we struggled a lot on the mound this weekend. I think Georgia had a lot to do with that. It's an incredible offense that they put together, but it was one weekend, and you just have to move on.
You won't know until you get out there on Thursday, but these last couple days at least, have you liked the response from your guys after that series, or what's kind of the mood been like here the last 48 or so hours?
Guys are fine. Look, it's a long season. The SEC, I've said it a million times, if you're looking to go undefeated, don't play in the SEC. If you're looking to have glossy records, this is probably not the league for you. This is a league about being really good, surviving it, and then getting to the postseason. Most of the time for most of the teams. Obviously, some teams go on a magical run and they get to the point where they have everything in place to dominate our league. It doesn't happen very often. But for the most part, our league is about surviving it, staying as even keel as you can through the 30-game marathon that our league is, and then get to the postseason and get hot. That's how Mississippi State did it and won a national championship. That's how Ole Miss did it and won a national championship. That's what our league is.
There you go. Coach Kingston, again today, he only went about 7 minutes, and that was about 5 of it right there for you. Not a whole lot else to say. You got to go. Got to go win your games, man. I mean, it's pretty simple. He's right about the brutal nature, if you will. That's a little too strong, but how difficult it is in the Southeastern Conference. And again, we said it earlier, and pardon my bluntness here. Last weekend sucked. It was horrible. There is no one on this planet that is going to dispute that pulls for South Carolina or covers South Carolina or anything else. If you're a Georgia fan, it was obviously the exact opposite. But for the Gamecocks, it was about as bad a weekend as you've seen in a long, long time. And it did more than likely knock you out of a hosting opportunity without doing something special this weekend and a little bit next week. You don't have to win the SEC tournament to host a regional. If you do win the SEC tournament, you will host a regional. I'll guarantee that if you're South Carolina. But I wouldn't expect that to happen. But it isn't the end of the world. Georgia is playing the best baseball in the country. We had Mitch Light of The Athletic on earlier, who covers college baseball for The Athletic, saying that exact same thing. So there's a guy from a few states over, national perspective, saying that. Speaking of guys with national perspective, by the way, our good friend Aaron Fitt of D1 Baseball, one of the best in the business, will be with Elijah and me on Friday afternoon. So looking forward to that. I've spoken with him, by the way, off air, and he too believes that Georgia is basically playing the best baseball in the country. So, yeah, look, I'm not here to try to make you feel better or worse or anything else. Again, brutal weekend. Go do something about it. That's what Mark's basically saying. Go do something about it.
Go steal you one.
Yeah. So can they? No. We shall see. And Coach did tell us, I heard he was asked there, have you announced the rotation? Not ready to announce it yet. Mark told Elijah and me yesterday when he was on with us that he and Coach Williams plan to announce that once they've left for Knoxville. And you and I kind of agreed earlier, take it a step farther, Coach. Don't announce it.
The masked pitcher.
Just don't
will
announce
be a
it.
thing.
Yeah, just don't announce it. Yeah, then that got us into a couple of minutes of making fun of the Masked Singer, which I'll never pass up the opportunity to do. It's really probably the dumbest show in the history of dumb shows, man. And yet, drive around the SEC, over-under win totals, and the baseball schedule coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some delays on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start here in Richland County. An accident has been reported on Bickley Road at Dutch Fork Road, causing some minor traffic backup, as well as one on Forest Drive near Highway 12 at Percival Road. That's been an issue for about an hour now. We also have one on Lower Richland Boulevard at Garner's Ferry Road and one on US 176 at Broad River Road near Piney Grove Road. Lastly, we have two in Lexington County, one on St. Andrews Road at I-26 and one more on I-26 westbound over at exit 108A.
It is Drive Around the SEC time. Jay and Elijah with you. We'll start with baseball. One game already underway with a conference team. Tennessee is hosting Belmont. And the Vols jumped out to a 5-0 lead in the bottom of the first. Belmont's now hitting top second. So what's Belmont, the Bruins?
They are the Bruins.
That's what I thought. They're in trouble already.
Yeah, not good. Basketball school, Belmont is.
Music school's good.
Yeah. I
know
Judah and the Lion frontman, Judah Akers, played on the baseball team at Belmont.
I know all the guys. I think at least most of the guys from Moon Taxi went to Belmont. I'm a big
Interesting.
I like Moon Taxi.
Moon Taxi's good.
They're good, man. Like, there's a band that came out of Nashville. It's like, oh, they don't sound anything at all like a Nashville band.
It's because they went to Belmont. That's the thing. Yeah.
Even Patrick told me one time, it's not all country music up here. And I was like, oh, that's good. Because I thought it was. I thought that was the law.
It was until Belmont was created.
That's good. They just had to have.
Big music school.
Yeah. But Moon Taxi, a rock band. Anyway, Tennessee, 5-0 over Belmont. Ole Miss will be at Southern Miss tonight. Ole Miss needs that one, and Southern Miss is really good.
They are. The Fun Belt.
Yeah, they're really good. North Alabama will be at Mississippi State, and we have some cancellations, I guess because of weather. I don't know.
I could not boo loudly enough for one of these.
Kentucky will not play Wright State, and Auburn will not go to Samford.
Samford would beat them.
Yeah. Auburn's not very good. Kentucky and Wright State. They should go. I don't know. I guess there's weather. One other game, by the way. I know this is not the SEC, but one other game that was canceled, and it is kind of a bummer. Clemson was going to play Coastal tonight in Conway in what would have been, presumably at least, Coach Gary Gilmore's final home game as the Chanticleer head coach.
Can't boo that cancellation loud enough. Cannot.
I think Gary's been there. I kid, since like right after World War II. He's great, man.
I love that program.
He's great.
I always have.
It's again, the Carolina Coastal Super Regional. The Gamecocks won it, and I know how much it meant to Coastal. And Coastal a few years later got their title, which was a big deal for Gary. And it was a hell of a run. That's a school that has to punch above its weight.
And has.
But he in the last few years has dealt with some really, really tough stuff, man. I mean, 2 different kinds of cancer. He's a legend. And I will be asking Coach. I know that Ray did. Got in contact with Ryan McGee, who did a nice piece on Coach Gilmore the other day.
Highly recommend.
And Ray was quoted in that. But yeah, man, those 2 games, again, in Myrtle Beach, not technically in Conway, because Coastal's park at the time was not big enough. So they played where the Pelicans play. That was a scene, man. Hot as all get out. Again, game 1, Matt Price was on fire. Game 2, the home run. Whew. You know, Ray has a story about Morales. You know, like Walker can't hit a 3-run homer if you're not on base.
And the logic lines up.
It's great.
The logic lines up perfectly.
Yeah, it was great. It's like he can't. It was awesome. He's like it's a good story.
Actually, I think that was the year that I went to my first ever postseason college baseball game when I was on vacation with my family at Myrtle Beach. We went to see them play college at Charleston in the the regional that year.
Yeah.
It was at the Myrtle Beach.
The week prior,
minor league ballpark, yeah.
Oh, man. And
so I was at that one. And
Gamecock fans were hot, and I don't mean weather-wise, that Coastal found a way, and this is the way Gamecock fans would tell it, to game the ticket buying system for the Supers. And they got all of them, man. Now, there were Gamecock fans there, believe me, but
Coastal
did a great job of
securing home field advantage.
Yeah. And Charleston I remember that was a good game. I mean, Charleston had a chance.
I thought Charleston beat them. I thought Charleston actually might have
had a game,
and then
maybe.
Coastal had to play them again.
Might be it.
Yeah.
But
I want to say Charleston beat them. There was like 9 runs in the first inning.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was fun.
Anyway, so back to the SEC stuff. The Action Network, Brett McMurphy and his crew have put out over-under win totals for the upcoming college football season. Georgia and Texas lead the way, both at 10.5. Georgia, I'm going over. Texas, I'm not.
Yeah, I'd be a little more hesitant on Texas.
I mean, Texas might go 10-2, but you know what? That's hitting the under.
That would be. And they have to go at Michigan this year. Don't know exactly what Michigan's going to be. They still have Oklahoma at Red River, and they still got to play Georgia too. Yeah. Like those two teams will play each other.
Michigan, I'm not. I think Texas beats them.
Yeah. They should.
Michigan lost everything.
They did. So I'm not really sure exactly what they're going to be, but nonetheless, you do have to play at the big house.
Yeah, that's true. Bama, LSU, Missouri, Mississippi, Tennessee, all at 9.5. Bama, I'll go over.
I'll go under on Bama.
Yeah?
Actually, no. So it's 9.5.
I could see Bama going 10-2.
I can see them go 9-3 this year.
All right, so under.
I think this year feels 9-3.
You might be right. I don't know. I don't have to. Here's the good news. I don't actually bet on any of this. I don't know if I like any of those teams to go over that then. If you've talked me out of Bama.
Because Bama's got to go to Tennessee this year. That one can be challenging for them. They have to go at Wisconsin, which while Wisconsin's kind of been up and down, I like Luke Fickell as a coach. Camp Randall's a tough place to play. They have to play Mercer this year. Just kidding. That's not going to be not much. But they do have to travel to Oklahoma this year as well. It won't be an easy road trip. I could see them tripping up 3 times.
Maybe.
And they have to play Georgia at home.
Yeah.
I don't think they're beating Georgia.
No, well, again, if it was 11.5 for Georgia, I might take the over.
Oh, yeah. It's stupid.
A&M is by themselves at 8.5 under. Again, they'll win 8. Mentioned that earlier. That's what they do. They go 8-4. Auburn and Oklahoma both at 7.5. Auburn, I'll probably give you the under. Oklahoma, I'm going over. That's to me. Again, I don't bet, but that feels like the strongest bet in the SEC. You're asking Oklahoma to go 8-4 minimum. Come on. If they don't, like, there's bigger problems. And, dude, Venables may be out in favor of somebody who can go coach that football team, and I think Venables can.
Right.
But this is Oklahoma.
Yeah. Well, this is also what you get. This is what you sign up for when you go to the SEC.
Yeah, and again, you and I talked about it earlier. When I see, like, Texas being picked basically at what amounts to 3 games better than Oklahoma with a head-to-head, I don't know, man. I can't wrap my hands around that. You're more comfortable with it than I'm not, man. I think Oklahoma's going to win at least 9 games. If this was 8.5, I'd go over because I think they'll win at least 9.
Yeah, see, I'm so unsure. I like Jackson Arnold a lot at quarterback, and that's the biggest question mark because they're going to be old. It's going to be an older team, and older teams win in today's college football. But they will live and die with the success of their quarterback, and that's a lot to put on the shoulders of a sophomore.
Yeah, just don't let them score points. That's what Brent will say. You know,
that's the thing. They like him. Dylan Gabriel would have stayed if they didn't like him.
Right.
You know.
Right. Kentucky by themselves at 6.5.
Meh.
Yeah, they'll go 7-5, 8-4.
What's Brock Vandegrift? I mean, that's another thing too. There's
Who's he got to throw to? That's my thing.
they lost a lot.
Yeah, who's he got to throw to? Arkansas, Florida, Carolina, all at 5.5.
Arkansas is a heavy under for me.
Yeah, I'd go under. I'd go under Arkansas. I think Florida bounces back, and I'm going to give Carolina 6 for now. I expect Carolina to win more. State at 4.5. Vanderbilt at 2.5.
Let's go over on Vandy, baby.
Yeah.
Look, their non-conference slate is Virginia Tech, Alcorn State, at Georgia State, and Ball State. You tell me they can't win 3 of those?
Yeah, they got it. They need to win 3 of those.
If they lose to one of Alcorn State, Georgia State, or Ball State, Clark Lee should not come back next year.
And he might not. That's the drive around the SEC, brought to you by Herndon Chevy, your hometown Chevy dealer. Save $20,000 on new Silverados together. Let's drive. We'll wrap things up for you as the postgame show continues. Couple of things to get you out of here on this Tuesday. Welcome back in, Jay and Elijah. Again, reminder, tomorrow, live in the 3 o'clock hour, South Carolina Athletics Director Ray Tanner will be joining us. A whole host of things to discuss around Carolina athletics, what's going on with expansion or realignment, anything like that, which I think the answer is going to be, I don't know, nothing, which is true. Some of the NIL stuff that's out there, the lawsuits that are out there, the settlements that are out there, the things that
The bill that just got passed?
the NIL bill here. We'll get into all that and more for you coming up tomorrow. Hey, congratulations again to the University of South Carolina. Not only are they the best in the conference, or at least number one in the conference in terms of a walking distance to a Waffle House from your football stadium at 0.2 miles, best in the SEC. That 0.2 miles is now best in America.
Hang the banner. Hang the banner inside Willie B right now.
I said today that not just tops in the conference, tops in the country, Carolina is safe until someone actually puts a Waffle House inside their stadium.
Full-on Atlanta Braves type stuff.
Well, I did, and I said, and for some unknown reason, this is me quoting myself on Twitter, and for some unknown reason, I'm looking at Auburn for that one. I don't know why. It was like, who here? And here's why I think maybe I thought about it. Now, they don't care about Carolina at Auburn, but Alabama is second on this list, both in the conference and nationally, at 0.4 miles. Georgia was third on the conference list, tied for fifth in the country at 0.6 miles. Auburn is 10th in the country and fourth in the league at 0.9 miles. So basically, Auburn would do it. Again, they don't care about Carolina. They would do it to thumb their nose, if you will, at Georgia and
Shakespearean
Alabama.
insults.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I could see, the Jordan-Hare Waffle House being built just for that purpose. They might not even ever open it. They just have it there and be like, we got a Waffle House. And it's closer than Georgia's and Alabama's to their football stadium.
You'd have to use it.
Oh, you would have to. There's no question. But congratulations again to University of South Carolina, the closest Waffle House to your football stadium of any school in America.
Makes me want Waffle House right now. That sounds great.
Waffle House is really, really, really good.
Big fan.
So, one more note. We didn't get to this yet. South Carolina, all the SEC opponents for the upcoming basketball season have been announced. They are not, we don't know dates and times as of yet. Those will be announced according to the conference release at a later date. I would say probably August?
Maybe. Something like that.
Right around the time school starts.
We'll know eventually.
Carolina's SEC opponents are as follows. Home games: Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Mississippi State, Texas, and Texas A&M. Road games: at Florida, at Georgia, at Kentucky, at LSU, at Mississippi State, at Missouri, at Oklahoma, at Tennessee, at Vanderbilt. So with more schools coming in, you've only got three home and homes this year. 3 home and homes instead of 4.
Mm-hmm. Florida, Georgia, Mississippi State.
Yeah, Florida, Georgia, and State. And Georgia and State have basically been Carolina's sort of like permanent home and homes the whole time. So that doesn't change. Florida will rotate. Yeah, it was 4, now it's 3. Mm-hmm. So going to Tennessee, I expect Rick to have another quality team, even if Dalton Knecht is in the NBA.
Had the highest vertical leap of anybody in the draft combine yesterday.
Did you see Zach Edey shooting threes, man?
I did. The release is slow as Christmas, but he makes them.
Well, if they leave him out there, I don't care. And here's the thing. You got to be really big to get in his face and stop him from shooting that. And then all he's got to do is pass. And he knows how to pass already.
Oh, I think he will make an NBA roster. People make the joke of like, oh, yeah.
How could he? How would you not? Why is he not a first-round pick?
I think someone will take him late first round.
I mean, I don't look, I get it. He's really slow.
And no one plays their back to the basket like
no, that. I know, but at the right coach and program, franchise, I guess.
Yes.
Can continue to develop his game. But, dude, he was stroking through. I grant you, a dude was passing him the ball.
Yeah.
That's it. There was no defense. But his stroke was
He's
solid.
got a good form. He's got good form.
And he was swishing them all, dude. I mean, he was – I don't get it. And I even saw today on one of the Talking Head shows who gets picked first, Zach Edey or Bronny James. And I'm like, is this a debate?
That's disgusting.
Zach Edey is
that
the
should be an
two-time
FCC
Big Ten,
finable offense.
Two-time Big Ten Player of the Year, right?
Two-time National Player
Player of the Year.
Back-to-back Woodens.
I mean,
the
come
first
on,
time since
man.
Ralph Sampson.
What are we doing here? I mean, nothing against. I mean, again,
the Bronny stuff's so unfair to him. It's not even funny.
Anyway, Coach Tanner tomorrow. Lots more on baseball, and we'll keep an eye on what's going on at the ACC meetings, especially now that a trustee at North Carolina has decided to throw a Molotov cocktail their way. See y'all tomorrow.